Okay, this meeting of the House Environmental Meeting will now come to order. Nikki, could you lead us in the pledge? Okay. Thank you. Evan, could you call the roll?
Vitale,
Present.
Brown,
Designation.
Fleming,
Designation.
Hohenstein, Isaacson,
Designation.
Kazim,
Designation.
Otten, Pieli, Rivera, Salisbury,
Designation.
Siegel,
Designation.
Steele,
Designation.
Takak, Webster, Rader,
Here.
Bashline, Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation.
Schaefer, Stender,
Designation.
Twardzik,
Designation.
Wentling.
He's here.
He's here.
Okay, we have a quorum. There are 3 items on our agenda today. House Bill 589 by Kincaid, which is a re-referral. House Bill 501 by Ottenfriel, and Senate Bill 349 by Senator Yaw. Before we begin, Jack, Chairman Jack, would you care to make any openings?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. The chair calls up House Bill 589 by Kincaid, which deals with the landslide and sinkhole insurance program. Evan, would you read a summary of that bill? Or we're going to refer it, so if you don't have a summary, that's okay, too.
House Bill 589 establishes the landslide and sinkhole insurance program to provide insurance coverage for landslides and sinkholes.
Okay, so the question is, will the committee report House Bill 589, printers number 69, with a recommendation it be re-referred to the House Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee? Just by way of background, this was referred to our committee last session. At the time, it involved the Department of Environmental Protection and was truly an environmental-related bill. The bill has been amended over time. The Department of Environmental Protection is no longer a part of this. This was probably not a bill I was going to move. I had a discussion with the prime sponsor, Kincaid. She suggested that we refer to the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. We had a discussion with Representative Solomon, who indicated he would be willing to accept this. Any discussion on this re-referral? Okay, those in favor of this referral will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Evan, would you call the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation, yes.
Fleming,
Designation, yes.
Hohenstein, Isaacson,
Designation, yes.
Kazim,
Designation, yes.
Otten, Pieli,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Salisbury,
Designation, yes.
Siegel,
Designation, yes.
Steele,
Designation, yes.
Takak, Webster,
Yes.
Rader,
Yes.
Bashline, Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation, yes.
Schaefer, Stender,
Designation, yes.
Twardzik,
Designation, yes.
Wentling.
Yes.
Okay, the bill is moved out of committee with the noted recommendation for re-referral. The chair next calls up House Bill 501, printers number 1478, which modifies the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard Act. Evan, would you give us a brief description of the bill?
House Bill 501 establishes Pennsylvania Reliable Energy Sustainability Standards and updates existing clean energy standards to provide for 35% generation from renewable sources by 2035.
Okay. There is one amendment. Representative Pugh offers Amendment 794. Evan, would you read a brief summary of that amendment?
A00794 allows a public safety answering point to require a path study for wind power projects.
Okay, the question is, will the committee agree to that amendment? On this question, the chair recognizes Representative Pugh.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this very important issue. For those that do not know, I come from a public safety background and doing public safety for 34 years in communication centers and 911 centers across our great nation and internationally. When it comes to public safety and communications, their backbone of their infrastructure comes from line of sight. So when you do a typical path study from a tower to a 911 center or from a tower to a tower, you would, in old school, send somebody up to the tower and literally do line of sight to where you want to go. In those calculations, you would also calculate a 10-year tree growth study because trees grow. So you have to account on this system on how soon the tree is going to interfere with communications on your line of sight studies. When it comes to all of a sudden standing something up in the middle of that line of sight without the PSAPs knowing, we create issues for our first responders and our communication experts, especially when it comes down to forcing our PSAPs, which are going digital, which shrinks the bandwidth, which means no communications. And now you have to figure a workaround. Do you have to move the entire tower site? Do you have to go higher on the tower to get over something that's that high and that big? The blades on the windmills can create issues as they're turning. So it's an overall concern that I have experienced during windmills being put up, or the wind turbine units, and it's something that I would like to see our PSAPs actually have consideration before they go up, where their locations are going to be, and know that their line of sight is not going to be intruded by this, this install that's going to take place. So I want to thank you for considering this amendment.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate this. I appreciate your concern for safety. I've had the opportunity to learn about the siting of windmills in conjunction with another bill by Rep. Mako. The current process whereby FAA approval is required and they seek the Department of Defense input is a system that has consistently resulted in the protection of public safety, and I don't feel a need for this amendment, so I will be asking my members to vote no on this. I will also note that this amendment is opposed by the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Coalition along with the Clean Air Council. Other comments? Danielle?
I just want to say thank you for the amendment. I share your concerns about public safety. I actually have a bill that has a similar study about natural gas pipelines and infrastructure going through residential communities that would create an early detection and warning system on that infrastructure when it's being sited. That kind of legislation actually more appropriately lands under Title 35, which is the Health and Safety Code in the PA Code. And for that reason, I think that this amendment is just not appropriately placed in this legislation. And another area where we may look at some of these public safety concerns around siting would be the reset bill that we will also see in the lightning package coming before us. So thank you for the amendment, but I'm going to ask for a no.
Further discussion? Okay, will the committee agree? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I waved after you
Go
looked
ahead,
down.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I sorry I missed you.
Mr. Chairman, I was quite impressed with the gentlelady's description of the web and the network of telecommunications and the emergency services that are affected by things like this. And I think it is, I guess I'm open to placement in statute. I didn't consider that because I thought this was placed well here. So I appreciate that. I'm learning about that part of it today. But what the gentlelady has offered here today is a way to protect our emergency services, the network that we have, the physical line-of-sight network that we have, and all of our emergency responders rely on this and require this. And our vegetation, our trees, the low stuff, the high stuff, grows quite rapidly. And we have a member here with experience in that and trying to add and better your legislation. And I would encourage you to reconsider your position if you wouldn't mind. I think it's a great amendment, and I hope that you'll reconsider that.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, will the committee agree to the amendment? Those in favor of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed, no. Evan, would you call the roll?
Vitale,
No.
Brown,
Designation no.
Fleming,
Designation no.
Hohenstein, Isaacson,
Designation no.
Kazim,
Designation no.
Otten, Pieli,
No.
Rivera,
No.
Salisbury,
Designation no.
Siegel,
Designation no.
Steele,
Designation no.
Takak, Webster, Rader,
Yes.
Bashline, Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation, yes.
Schaefer, Stender, Twardzik, Wentling.
Okay, the amendment fails. The question is, will the committee report the bill as introduced? Discussion, Representative Otten.
Thank you, Chairman. 20 years ago, Pennsylvania led the nation by establishing the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard. We have since met and even exceeded the standards from the original AEPS, and that has now expired. And today, Pennsylvania ranks 45th in the nation in clean energy development. It's been long since time for us to update these standards, and now we find ourselves in the face of a crisis of energy supply. We have a basic issue of supply and demand. PJM has warned that capacity shortages for energy supply for our grid reliability could hit us as soon as next year, 26, 27. In the 2024 capacity market, the cost went to $270 per megawatt day, and that was 10 times higher than the auction the previous year. That would result in $14.7 billion in cost passed through to consumers if we fail to act. The U.S. now exports more LNG than it supplies domestically, and that's driving the cost of energy further up. By diversifying our portfolio, we insulate ourselves from the impacts of global markets and global instability. We stabilize our energy grid. We ensure that we have sustainable, reliable energy to deliver to consumers at a sustainable and reliable price. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank the staff, especially my staff, who's worked really hard on fine-tuning this legislation, and all of the stakeholders who engaged in the process, and also the governor's team, who's just been a tremendous partner in getting this legislation to a committee vote. And with that, I will ask for an affirmative vote.
Thank you. Chair Rader?
Surprisingly, I have a different point of view, but I think one of the biggest issues in my district, besides property tax taxes are people's electric bills. They've been skyrocketing the last number of years. And to me, it's not a shock why. We keep closing plants down. We keep closing the production so there's less supply. And if you have less supply, it's going to cost more. So I think it's fairly simple what's happened. There are other factors, too. That's not the only factor, but I think that's one that contributes a great deal to this. So when I look at the issue, if we give people money to pay their electric bills or we subsidize other ways of generating power, that doesn't really solve the problem that we have. And I think I'd rather see government out of the way and let these companies generate power the most cheapest and effective way and make sure that they don't overcharge the consumer. I would rather see something like that. So I don't know the last time a government mandate ever lowered costs on anything. And this is a government mandate, and when you do that, generally, the cost of the product goes up, not down. That's the history of it. This could be the first time that doesn't happen, but I think we would have to subsidize other ways of doing it so much to bring that cost down, and I don't want to spend that money either. And it's not just the people's bills. It's we had a bill the other day about a business coming in. Can we allow a business to come in because it's going to use so much power? That's scary. We don't want to stop businesses from coming in because they're using power. We have to look at the problem, look at the issue, and try and solve it. And I don't think this solves the problem. I think it just extends it. And I would rather see government maybe getting out of the way a little bit and working with the companies that generate energy and seeing if we can't come up with some solutions that are lower costs and actually deal with the problem.
Thank you. Rep. Twardzik, or is it Acting Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for going after my chairman, but we had a very good hearing the other day regarding this bill, and we did have a good review from David Taylor from the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. And he had a lot of questions that are unanswered. And this bill does not help us get more energy. And today we're finding out that solar and wind and alternative energy is not a base energy. And the more you research it, we can't run our country on an unreliable resource. We need gas, we need coal, we need oil, nuclear, because those give us our base. Those other green energies can work, but they are not 24-hour. So we can't run any of our data centers on wind or solar. The amount of energy or ground we need to take up to build these solar farms and wind farms will take up all of Montgomery County, Allentown, and Easton. So we just can't make this 35% goal. It doesn't make sense. And because we let the market move forward, we were able to use more natural gas to make energy. Our greenhouse gases have gone down. We've cleaned up our act. And today's coal is better. We actually are exporting a majority of our anthracite coal to Japan and to Brazil to make steel. So we're not polluting heating homes. We're actually building steel. And that is a wonderful opportunity to create good paying jobs. We've opened our mines. They remain open. And every time we mine coal today, we reclaim the land. So we are not the big, bad energy producers of the past. We are better at it. And our people live here. They go to school here. They hunt here. They recreate here. So energy people care. And we have so much great resource potential here in Pennsylvania for us to take away money from our existing energy products and turn around and subsidize the green energy, which isn't quite there yet. Eventually it'll get there, but there's no reason to penalize our existing jobs and our consumers, because it's just going to raise money and not solve our problems. So I would be a strong no and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Rep. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add a few comments about, I guess I'll call it the infrastructure of the energy business itself. And it's my understanding that if we proceed down this path, one of the casualties of this is going to be the waste coal industry. As you may recall, I have one of the waste coal plants in my district, Scrubgrass. And at one point, I think there were as many as a dozen or maybe 14 of these plants around Pennsylvania. I think we're down to, is it 11, Jared? Okay. These plants were originally subsidized, at least in my area, by the Penelec Electric Company, division of First Energy, and they had issues. It's no longer the case. But whether or not you're impressed by the amount of energy that is delivered by these waste coal plants to the grid, one thing remains true, and that is they're cleaning up our environment. This committee is obviously interested in the continuation of cleaning up the environment. Something along the order of 8,000 acres of land have been reclaimed over the last couple decades. I think the last estimate of taxes and other benefits to our economy was $225 million that has been saved. Acid mine drainage, which is a big problem all over the state where there was coal industries, we're cleaning those up. So I think it's important to continue to support the waste coal industry, which again, I understand if this proceeds, they may get hit by as much as $100 million. And there's 2,200 jobs in this industry, which obviously they will be affected as well. So I will be a no on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Schaefer?
Yes, thank you. Pennsylvania not long ago was one of the largest net exporters of electricity, of energy in the country. Our lead in that area has rapidly dwindled. We have some neighboring states like Maryland that are major importers of our energy. And we're sitting at a crossroads where there are major entities with data centers and others that are very high electrical users. Our whole way of life is predicated largely on readily available cheap energy. My district and a lot of districts in western Pennsylvania were hit at the end of April with a major storm event, and we had residents who were out of power for a week or more because of the loss of energy, and there was a policy committee hearing on that. Obviously, that was on the transmission grid area, not the production. But I am deeply concerned, as an engineer, I have a degree in electrical and computer engineering, about putting arbitrary mandates on the source of production of energy and not letting the market determine that. We have a number of exciting technologies that are out there, whether or not you're talking about micronuclear, hydrogen, very small peaking natural gas plants that are available to utilize the natural resources that we have right under us, especially in western Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, with some of our universities and companies, leads the way in some of these technologies. And whenever government, even for the right intentions, almost tries to handcuff and put these arbitrary limits, you reduce the ability for innovation that the market is able to achieve. So I actually think one of the ways that we can help drive improving energy, and something I hear consistently, is issues with permitting that we need to address. I know that is part of some of the proposals, but I think I have talked with many people in western Pennsylvania, people who even want to put solar facilities in that are having great difficulty in connecting to the network right now, and all types of energy production. I think if we really want to have a long-term solution for energy, we need an all-of-the-above approach. We don't need to mandate a particular type of solution, and we need to solve the permitting problem, which is hurting industries, not only energy, but all types of industries in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much has been said from some of my colleagues, which I tend to agree with. I think we are at a crossroads. I think that we should be looking at many forms of energy, nuclear, geothermal, and even using our gas and our oil, because we are facing a pending crisis. But that's why I support this bill. This is an all-of-the-above bill. It truly is, considering also environmental impacts. This is an and-also bill. This isn't an either-or bill. Now, I've heard much from my colleagues on the other side about subsidizing an industry. picking winners and losers, but in fact, we've already done that. If you look at our impact fee for gas, and you compare it to the first leading producer, which is Texas, which we're right behind, you will see that the impact fee, and in fact, is a subsidy in and of itself. So let's give some figures. Let's look at 2022, where we were only 2% behind Texas in production. 2%. Texas, with their severance tax, pulled in $4.5 billion. We pulled in $230 million. 2023, the last figures that I have, Texas was ahead of us by 30% production for various reasons. They pulled in $2.5 billion. We pulled in $170 million. So it's very difficult for me to sit here and say that we are picking winners and losers, that we are strangling gas when they have gotten an impact fee that is nowhere else existing in the United States. It is a ridiculous per well fee, and as they start drilling less and using the same wells, we're going to be getting less and less revenue as they seek to export this when we need to have this here, to your point, to use for our grid. These arguments I find nonsensical. And let's talk about Texas again. Texas, right? We're talking about red conservative Texas, folks. Let me be blunt. They are first in wind in the country. They are second in solar in the country. They understand the need to diversify and strengthen their grid. So if we are to be a powerhouse in energy, let's follow the mode of Texas. Let's look at that. And let's talk about, instead of this ridiculous argument about picking winners and losers, recognizing that this bill is an opportunity that we can fine-tune, where we can use any and all of these resources to protect our consumers going forward when it comes to our power grid. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Pugh.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I want to thank Representative James for bringing up the coal and what's going on. I am a benefactor of my district of having some reclamation done. And in fact, we just turned 7 acres over to a borough, which is going to turn into a beautiful park. So I think we need to make sure that we protect that industry and we start taking care of the errors of our ways from the past and bringing the land back to what it used to be. So I am all in support of keeping your factories going in order to correct what's wrong. And I think that's a true way to protect our environment, is to actually get down into the reclamation of the columns and the coals, and it'll clean our water and it'll clean our air. And I think that's a great way to do it. As far as I would rather fine-tune now before passing something on that we all can't get behind. So if that's something we want to look to do, let's have that conversation. But the way it sits now, unfortunately, I'm going to be a no.
Rep. Hohenstein.
Thank you, Chair. Diversify, diversify, diversify. It's what you always do in financial markets. It's what we need to do in our energy markets. If we don't make certain that we have appropriate market shares for all of the different sources of energies, and I do agree with a number of the folks who have spoken from both sides that we need an all of the above approach when it comes to energy, and it is specifically because we need to make sure that consumers have cost certainty. The current system just gave us a 10-fold increase in the future markets. How? Because of the uncertainty. We need to be able to say, when you need to flip that light switch, when you need to have a fridge to keep your beer cold, or you need to have hot water for that nice warm shower that we all want in the morning, that you have it. And reliability doesn't just come with natural gas. Reliability comes with a diverse and nimble electric grid that has to be something where we focus on consumer cost. So one of the reasons that I also don't appreciate the concept of are we picking winners and losers is because we've been doing that for all of Pennsylvania's electric and energy generation history. For over 100 years, we've been selecting fossil fuels and petroleum products as the winners in our system. That was reflected by the comments of my colleague who talked about the fact that we don't have appropriate impact fees or let's say taxes, because if you can say Texas, you can say taxes, and if Texas is taxing, then we can do the same. And so we aren't picking winners and losers. We're just making sure that there's a level playing field to provide an appropriate balance of energy production in order to keep our constituents, our friends, our neighbors with cost certainty when it comes to electricity generation and having the power when you flip that switch. The last point I want to make is that one of the largest fields in which we are seeing an increase in electricity use is coming from the data centers and other places where the sole use of the energy is to keep computers running and to keep them at stable temperatures. We are doing nothing to tell this monster of an industry that is coming in to suck up all the energy that we produce domestically in Pennsylvania and use it. We're not telling those folks that they have any responsibility, but they do. And they need to be held to standards, just like the rest of us are, for efficiency, for sustainability, and for cost certainty. And if we don't do something like this, we are going to find a market that is dominated by a single or maybe two sources of energy that will then determine prices that come after. And we've seen the result of that in the past few PJM markets and the auctions. We need to take a step forward and stop that trend now.
Thank you. Further discussion? Rep. Schaefer?
I just wanted to point out, and this is a complex topic. Our electrical grid in Pennsylvania is connected to the PJM, as others have pointed out. And if I think the AI data centers represent a tremendous potential for us in Pennsylvania for jobs, for taxes, and we should be encouraging them. If we don't, let's just theoretically say a data center locates a mile over the border in Ohio, they're still going to suck Pennsylvania energy. They're going to suck whatever energy is on the grid to power that data center. So we operate in a compact of numerous states with electricity production, electricity consumption. I also am a little bit concerned about the conflation of the impact fees and the extraction of energy, because once again, there is a difference between the two. As others have pointed out, a lot of our energy, natural gas that is extracted either through traditional or fracking means, is exported, providing jobs locally, especially in western Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania. That natural gas oftentimes is sent to places that have banned it completely, such as New York, where fracking is not allowed. So it's not a one-to-one correspondence between being able to extract a resource within Pennsylvania and being able to use that within Pennsylvania for the generation of electricity, and for that generation of electricity to stay in Pennsylvania, because we operate in a highly interconnected electrical grid, and those commodities move across state lines very easily. Electricity flows across straight lines very easily. So I'm very concerned that we are handicapping ourselves as Pennsylvania if we start implementing some of the suggestions that I've heard today.
Thank you. Webster?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm hesitating to speak because there's 20 ideas on the table today as we go through this discussion, and they're important ideas. I'm not sure if I'm attacking this from an academic perspective or if it sounds political, but maybe it's political science and an academic perspective. When we look at, and I'm not going to respond directly to a lot of the language, whether it's something here as a mandate or picking winners or losers, which tend to be political statements that tilt the discussion in a pejorative way. I think there are some economic issues here. We know that demand for energy is enormous and it's soaring. And if we don't do all the above, we're not going to have the generation capability that we need to meet that demand. And that goes with whichever way you slice and dice this. When we talk about incentives that governments do, whether it's historical research in the federal government in the 1970s that created the fracking industry, right? Big advantages, big investments by the government that enabled an industry to kick off. And then to become the status quo and say government shouldn't invest in anything else or incentivize anything else drags down that economy, especially at a time when we are faced with large demand. Demand is going to pull prices up. The export market, which is huge, is enormously more profitable than domestic market. And the more we export economically, the higher domestic prices are going to go. And then if you think about, as we've talked about, New York or Maryland as part of this compact, they are creating this generation capability. They're putting solar and wind and other things out there, and they're investing, and they're supporting that new market and the new technologies. And if Pennsylvania falls behind in all of those things, once again, Pennsylvanian, utility energy users are going to pay higher prices. It's time for us to envision a bigger market. That is, we keep saying all of the above. And then, yes, the market's going to fight over which sector is producing the most efficient, cheapest energy. But it's time for us to open that up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair Rader.
I agree with a lot of the comments that were said today. I am for all of the above. I want all types of energy in the system. I'm just against mandates. If the bill was you have to increase energy production by 35%, I'm good with that. But that's not what this bill does. It's a mandate to have certain types of energy produced at 35%. And if the market, if the ability is not there to achieve that, it's going to cost a lot of money to achieve that. And I'm not for that. I don't like mandates. So my position is the mandate part. I think we do need all of the above. I think most of us here do think we need all of the above. I just don't like the mandate to go down a road maybe we're not ready for yet.
Further discussion? Well, I would urge my members to support this bill. When Pennsylvania passed its alternative energy portfolio standard back in 2004, we were a leader, and our goal of 8% Tier 1 resources by 2021 was really at the forefront. We have been woefully outstripped by neighboring states. The amount of electricity, for example, Pennsylvania produces by solar is less than 1%. It hasn't been thoroughly discussed here, but we do have an obligation to reduce our carbon emissions in Pennsylvania. We are a significant carbon emitter. And this bill, by incentivizing carbon-free nuclear, solar, and wind, coupled with storage, geothermal, and others, will help to reduce those CO2 emissions. So the question before us is, will the committee report this bill? Those in favor of reporting this bill out of committee will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Evan, can you call the roll?
Vitale.
Aye.
Brown.
Designation aye.
Fleming,
Designation aye.
Hohenstein, Isaacson,
Designation aye.
Kazim,
Designation aye.
Otten, Pielli,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Salisbury,
Designation aye.
Siegel,
Designation aye.
Steele,
Designation aye.
Takak, Webster, Rader,
No.
Bashline, Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation no.
Schaefer, Stender, Twardzik,
No.
Wentling.
The bill has sufficient votes and will be reported to the House as a whole. The next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 349 by Senator Yaw. That is printers number 286. The chair calls up this bill. Evan, would you read a summary of this?
Senate Bill 349 provides for solar energy decommissioning requirements.
The question is, will the committee report this bill? Discussion.
I just want to say, and I know Senator Yaw's not here, but I do commend him on this work of this bill. When I go through my district in central Pennsylvania, I hear from lots of my constituents about those awful solar fields that they see every day. And now that I'm able to tell them that we're actually coming up with a plan of when those solar panels fail and have already started to fail, that we actually have a plan of how to decommission them, you know, I applaud the work of the good senator from Lycoming County.
Okay. Further discussion. Okay. The question is, will the committee report Senate Bill 349? Those in favor of reporting this bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Evan, would you call the roll?
Vitale,
Aye.
Brown,
Designation aye.
Fleming,
Designation aye.
Hohenstein, Isaacson,
Designation aye.
Kazim,
Designation aye.
Otten, Pielli,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Salisbury,
Designation aye.
Siegel,
Designation aye.
Steele,
Designation aye.
Takak, Webster, Rader,
Yes.
Bashline, Day, Flick, James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation yes.
Schaefer, Stender, Twardzik,
Yes.
Wentling.
The bill has sufficient votes and will be reported out of committee. Chair Rader, do you have any closing comments?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, then this committee is adjourned. Thank you very much.